that home-style World Cup coming next year. Let's hear what Mauricio Pochettino had to say after the game.
Look, here is not to blame, it's not to find some guilty. I think we are all responsible about these two results. But yes, I think it's still a lot of time to the World Cup. We have in June the possibility to play 2 friendly games and then the World Cup. And I think there is the moment to be sure that we need to face, the competition in a different way.
It's very negative around this team right now, from the fans, maybe even from within the group, the negativity of losing games.
No, it's not negativity. Where is the negativity?
Well, maybe the pessimism. How do you create...
The pessimism, yes.
How do you create
I like the pessimism that is pushing us. A lot of the example you see in the different years in the World Cup. I think sometime teams that were building, to play in the World Cup, they were not good until arrived the World Cup. I think I want to send the message to the fans. Don't be pessimistic and don't get bad feelings. That can happen. But I think the main objective is the World Cup.
Mario Melchoit now joining us, obviously kept his eye on that game as well. But we must begin with you, Herky. We've obviously had a lot of reaction to what's happened here. What have you got to say about what Pochettino's had to say after the game?
Listen, I went on a rant after the first game about how incredible it is that Mauricio Pochettino's talking about destroying Panama. Not just beating Panama, but destroying Panama. And then you lose to Panama, a depleted Panama. Hats off to Panama. About winning the World Cup in 5 to 10 years, the arrogance of saying that, and then going out and getting 4th place in a competition of 4 teams. He keeps stressing that he wants the U.S. to be like Argentina, like Argentina. I, too, want him to treat the U.S. like Argentina. In Argentina, in that footballing culture, if you are going to YouTube charity matches, if you are going to club games of your boyhood club, News Old Boys, and they see you in those events and you are not winning, if you're having more fun off the field than you are on the field, they will crush you, they will kill you. That is the culture he wants to instill. It goes both ways. Telling fans of a country that is paying you $6 million a year to have patience and don't be pessimistic after their worst ever showing in this competition, it just screams of arrogance. It screams of, you Americans, just wait. I will show you. That is Pochettino. The players.
You okay, Hank? You're going to make it through this?
I mean, Mario, I don't need to tell you guys what it means to play for your country.
No, and what it means to show a response, though, because we were told that...
Like, you shouldn't be begged to play for your country, and in that playing for your country, give a damn. Play with pride. And when you play for your country, it has to be the most important thing for you. If not, step aside. And it's not for a lot of these players. And I know that there have been other players who've gone on these rants, but when it comes to naming these players, I was asked earlier today, well, who? I was like, it's an easier time if I tell you who saves themselves. Like, who exactly plays for their country. I'd have an easier time naming those players than going through the long list of guys who look like they could care less. And that is a problem, because fans, in today's climate, that hard-earned money, go take your family to a game, how expensive it is. And for this, and this is the effort you get, the desire has to be there. I could understand on your day, tactically, technically, it's not there. But if the desire, the pride isn't there, you shouldn't be there. And
you'd expect some more urgency after what had happened, after the fact that we'd seen that we would be expecting a response after that exit, Ale.
First of all, let me just say that not many people spend their hard-earned money to watch this team play, because once again, it was
empty.
Empty. Family and friends and loved ones, and that's it. In terms of this team, the word that I kept coming back to following the Panama game and then following the Canada game, I was left with the same impression. This team lacks aggression. it's a team that, and you can call it mentality, you can call it urgency, you can call it intensity, just the overall attitude of the group. And I have to say the group because this goes beyond Pochettino. It was the same under Greg Berhalter at times that we would have the same conversation about this same group of players. They lack aggression, and they also lack something that is critical to have as part of any team, and certainly at the national team level. You have to be able to process information on the go and understand what each game requires and demands from you specifically, individually and then as a group. In the game against Panama, you know that this is a team that they're going to sit behind the ball, they're going to condense the space, they're going to try to frustrate, and they're going to compete. First and foremost, they're going to compete for everything. 50-50s, duels, all of those things. So as an American player, priority number one is, with every challenge, we have to go and win this ball. We got to go through this ball. We got to lay somebody out and let them know that we're not just going to be bullied, that we're not just going to be pushed around, that we're going to dictate how the game is going to be played. No recognition of that whatsoever. Play the game at a very slow pace and then got pushed around and bullied by Panama. So you're thinking, to your point, Kay, and your original question, there's going to be a response. There's going to be a reaction. Everybody covering this team was saying, okay, here we are. Here we go. The reaction is coming. The reaction never came. In fact, you mentioned as two players that can save themselves from these two games. One player that keeps coming up is Diego Luna. The reason Diego Luna actually stands out above the rest in these matches is because he actually is running. He's actually challenging. He's actually chasing a ball. He's actually competing, which you cannot say about the rest of the group. Beyond all of that, at some point, there's got to be accountability, individual accountability. And we keep asking. And we keep demanding something more from this team. And yet the same characters, the same protagonists, the same names show up game in and game out, and we see exactly the same sort of performance. So why are we expecting something different? Is it because of Pochettino? Truth of the matter is, at some point, coaches have come and gone, the players are the same, and we're seeing the same sort of results and the same sort of performances. At some point, the players got to raise their arms and say, it's us. But not just to the press, not just out to the world, be among themselves. We have got to showcase a better version of ourselves so that we can actually demand that we are better on the field, not just on intensity, not just on fight, not just on competition, but on quality of play as well.
Mario?
Yeah, but look, I understand. Look, the two games that came, you understand? And of course, you understand, everybody's going to jump on the quality, the way they play. But what you have to remember, some of the players, why we pick on them, is not only because we pick on them, I think, because the way they only perform for their country, of course, but also because they do so well at their own teams. When you do well at your team and you come and play for your country, I think that is where we're looking for the balance. And I think that is probably the difference, because watching the game, for example, you understand, when I watched the game yesterday, it's like you wait for that spark. And then, the responsibility has to come from the guys that, and I don't want to, put too much fire on them, but definitely for the guys that play abroad and have the European experience, because they know the global sense. And then when you play against a country like Canada, it's not that Canada has so many players on the pitch that you say like, oh, they 10 times better. No, Pochettino, his problem now will be, how can I make a team out of each individual and making sure that they all go the right direction? Because at the moment, when I see them play, you can have the ball. They had the ball, what is it, 60% they had the ball possession. I see the way they play at the back. It looks so shaky. It does not look comfortable. Some things you don't have to do when you don't have the team yet and the confidence in the team to do it. And I think that is what's happening now. They play a certain style of football that I don't think America is at yet. If he wants to get them to that level, he's got to work a little harder.
If we talk the big names, though, and we saw Pulisic waving off that substitution, what do you think when you see something like that, Shaka?
Well, on the one hand, given that, okay, the stand of a free kick and doesn't do much, albeit doesn't do much with it, I expected more from him, certainly in the moment. And when he does make his way to the sidelines eventually. So give him credit to that. But again, in the moment, you thought if you wave away substitution at that point, you think something special is going to happen. It couldn't have been any less so. Let me just say, I find this US team such a conundrum. And it's difficult to explain. While we're talking about the team that, to Herc's quote, finished fourth in a group of four, that was good. It's the same team that scored.
Simple math, really.
Right? That was so well put. I wish I could frame my whole life like that. But we are talking about the team that scored 10 goals coming into this 10 goals in the previous 3 games coming into this competition. And here's the thing with the US men's national team, and Pochettino kind of half touched on it. At times I feel like the US are better against better opposition, even if they don't get a result. And there's this sense of arrogance up against CONCACAF teams, where it's almost as though they feel, they expect, and more to the point, they think the opposition expects that as long as we step on the field with the US, the result is inevitable. And quite clearly, Panama showed it's anything different. Now, that's different when USA-Mexico plays. Now, all of a sudden, you have a real game. But other than that, whenever the US comes up against other CONCACAF nations, there's this type of arrogance about the game, this inevitability that certainly the fans feel, and at times I feel the players seem to believe as well. But then you go up against better opposition, even if you lose 2-1, let's say, and you put up a fight, you are praised for that. You're praised because you're able to match with some of the big boys. And you will never be able to match with the big boys, as the US has this focus on European teams ever since I could remember. But you will never be able to make that leap in competing with them if you cannot dominate in CONCACAF, if you cannot turn up, if you cannot have that same grit, that same fight that everybody else is bringing onto the pitch when you do. And so you just find yourself stuck in this weird middle again. Against CONCACAF nations, when you feel to turn it on, you can do it, you can get it done. Most times, not really, you're not really bothered to turn on, and then you're unable to make that leap. Past, oh well, we competed, you just wait. In 5 years' time, we'll be best in the world, or something equally ridiculous.
While I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that I think the United States, and I don't know where this comes from, but this group of players seems to overlook the opposition or look down on the opposition from CONCACAF. What I would ask, and I would be curious to hear what these players have to say. How do you explain that in the 92nd minute, in a game that you're losing 2-1, right? Instead of you're losing. So you may look down on the opposition all you want to, but at this point you're losing. This is 92nd minute. So you're thinking, okay, what should we do now? If we had urgency about our game, if we had aggression about our game, shouldn't we just put this ball into the box and see if we can manufacture some sort of chaos? Instead, this team is knocking the ball around in the back. They're possessing the ball in the 92nd, 93rd minute when they're losing late. And so it goes back to the point that I was making, that I don't think they're able to figure out on the go what the game needs and demands from them. They couldn't do it against Panama, and they couldn't do it against Canada. In fact, I would also say Canada scores the second goal, and it's not like there is a reaction from the United States. Look at all the chances we created. Just Sinclair had a bunch of saves. That wasn't the case. Canada was closer to scoring a third than the U.S. were to time the game up. It paints a very poor picture of this team going forward.
There are 7 MLS players who come into this camp from January camp. You look at the players who made the mistakes. Those weren't January camp players. They were experienced players. The first goal that Canada has, Timothy Weah, an experienced Serie A player, is getting backed into his own box, never pressures, allows the cross to come into Jonathan David. The second goal, a player like Mark McKenzie, who plays in France, goes with the run instead of the immediate danger, which is the ball, and has Jonathan David, one of the premier strikers in this area, turn him like a top. It's just too easy. I think fans need to accept that this team isn't as good as we thought. If you don't have all your pieces, they're going to struggle. There was no Anthony Robinson, no Serginho Dest. There weren't the 3 best 9s that you probably have today in Ricardo Pepi, Folarin Balogun, Haji Wright. You have depth in Malik Tillman. There are important pieces on this team night. Here, you are not good enough to have that luxury.
When we do go back to the leaders and those that are playing in Europe, then, Mario, how important is it for players like that to be leading by example on the pitch, to be busting their guts every time they're chasing for a ball?
Yeah. No, look, I think the key thing is that they have to, like what the guys mentioned, right? They look down on certain players, but you also have to remember when you look at a big nation, and this is the feeling I had, and also when we're talking about Holland, you understand, coming in a situation, you always have to remember when you're part of a size at that level, people want to beat you all the time. And it doesn't matter, you understand, like you could not be at a certain level of quality-wise, but that nation is that big, we want to beat you. It doesn't matter. If we're coming and we are smaller, because, come on, what are we going to do? 17 million Holland against, what, 330 million Americans? Oh, man, we're coming with force, but we're coming from the first minute the referee blows the whistle, we're going to prove a point. And this is exactly what they don't do. When the referee blows the whistle and you play against a so-called smaller nation in your perspective, and however you want to see it, you have to remember that they're looking to hurt you. And don't get hurt. And that is the same even if you just represent your team or your nation, it's the same thing. When we played like smaller clubs, for example, and it's club football, you also remember that the first minute the coach used to say, come on, let's have a go, because the first minutes are very important. And these are the things I want to see at them. Poch knows it, because he knows how to put it down. He's been a defender himself. He knows how to, step up and be hard and be tough. He comes from a culture that is tough. So he needs to bring the toughness into that team. And sometimes it's not going to be cute. It's not going to be nice. But it doesn't matter if you want to win things. It don't always have to be nice.
Mario just made the point there of proving a point. You watch Canada play yesterday against the United States, and every team or every player on that field for Canada is proving a point and plays with that sort of intensity. You see a guy like Bombito and Cornelius and Johnston, they're going through challenges. They're winning balls. And they don't care where you play, who you are. In fact, more to the point, you're Christian Pulisic. You're the best. You're the best in CONCACAF, I see. Here we go. Here's your challenge. Have some of that. Enjoy it. And my point is that there's no response from the United States. You don't see anybody from the United States going after Jonathan David and laying him out. Now, some people may say, well, we're just going to go around kicking people. Sometimes that's needed. Sometimes that's required. Sometimes you got to tell people that you're also here to prove a point. And for those guys that are getting an opportunity to play because of some of the injuries that you mentioned, did they prove a point? They might have proved the point the wrong way, that they don't belong in that stage.